So yeah, we were doing we were talking about this the other day. Now, obviously, Teresa Halbach did actually go to his property. She was taking pictures of a trailer for his sister. Then she went missing, and she was found later on like this. And I'm sorry for the upsetting pictures, but to know this case, you have to be able to understand that happened. This was what was found of her remains in this box here, in fire pits. She had been dismembered, burnt, etc., etc. This was what was found of her skull. These are the fragments of her skull. And we actually then looked into kind of whether he was guilty or innocent. Now, if you didn't see me the other night, you may need to catch up on this. However, I'll probably give you the gist of it as we go through what we're going to talk about tonight. And then I will move on to the case of two little girls who were horrifically murdered. So Stephen Avery was a wrongful conviction. He served 18 years in prison for a rape he didn't commit, and then they found the real rapist and attempted murderer. So the police force in his area were about to have to give him a £36 million payoff at the time when he was convicted of this crime, meaning instead of 36 million, they only had to give him 400,000. So there are a lot of people that believe that they did it, they set him up, right? Now, most people, I believe, who have any kind of sense don't think the police did the crime and killed Teresa Halbach. They actually think that the police just made it look like he did it. What does that say? First opinion, I thought innocent. Second, see, Anna, I haven't watched the second one yet because I don't like to watch things before I cover the cases, because it's just like me spewing what Netflix have said. So it was only the other night when I'd covered this case, which is all on YouTube if anyone wants to watch me cover this case from the other day. It was only when I did it. It's called Making a Murderer, Sinead. It's one of the biggest programmes ever to come out on Netflix. I haven't watched the second part yet because I wanted to talk about what I'm going to talk about tonight before I watched it. Now, first of all, I'll just quickly... I haven't seen the second one. Thank you, Hayley, but thank you guys for all the gifts. Thank you for helping me pay my bills. What channel? No, on YouTube is Hayley_comet_crime. It's my new channel that we're trying to build up. Let me just go through a little bit of what happened, because I know that some of you weren't here the other night. You haven't watched the second? I want to watch the second because I just wonder... That's what I'm thinking about. Well, I personally don't think he's innocent, right? After the research I've done outside of the Netflix programme, after the research I've done for the last 4 days, and it's been fucking me up, right? I've been deep diving so hard on stuff. I've been reading through the transcripts of the court. I've been looking into the ping evidence of phones. I've been looking into Stephen's reputation, into what his family was. I've literally got to a stage where I thought to myself, thank you, Kirsty, thank you everyone for the gifts, that yes, I think he may have done this. And yes, I think they also planted evidence to get a conviction. And I think if they hadn't planted that evidence, eventually he would have been caught for it anyway. There are some parts of me that still think maybe a family member of his did this, such as Bobby, along with Bobby's new stepdad. There are definite people in this case where I think that they may have been responsible, but there was definitely some parts here that I can see. Thank you, G, thank you, Fran, thank you everyone, guys, for the gifts. There are definite some parts of this case that I just can't explain. And I did the case the other day very much from the side that he's innocent, right? The planted RAV4, the blood, and how he had a crusher on the site, and he could have crushed a car. He didn't. There is definitely so many parts I can see him having been set up. But there's also a lot of things in his past that make you think, wow, he's a real bad guy. He molested certain children from his family that had come forward. He had, run women off the road in cars and threatened them with guns. He had domestic violence in his past. He had once held a bonfire, covered a cat in gasoline and chucked him into the fire. And do you know what I find? I find that people that can hurt animals can hurt people. Now, you guys know I joke all the time about the fact that I hate cats, right? I'd never hurt an animal. I'd never hurt an animal. I would never let one of my children hurt an animal, not a fly, you've seen me kill moths, let's be honest, I'm not going to lie. I've killed some flying animals, but only saved my own life. And I send them to animal heaven, like it's not the same. But I would never douse an animal in who would, man? And we know the triad of serial killers is bedwetting, fire starting, and killing animals. Yeah, all of you look at me like I'm a bad person now. It was a moth. It was on my head. Do you know what I mean? And the spider the other day that came up on a fucking piece of string from my head, like I was on Miss Muffet, fucking sat on a tuffet, eating whatever curds and fucking way is. I don't even know what that is. And it was just literally there. And everyone was going, there's a spider. And I'm like, fuck off. And then all of a sudden I thought, there is a fucking spider. And then all my mods fucking recorded it and put stupid music and stuff because they know how I feel. It wasn't. I was very near death. I was in a gang fight. You know what I mean? I should have got it with fucking scissors. As it was, I literally just put it outside. Yeah, it was a huge muckus. Not me, Hayley. No, you were too fast. It was one of those things where it was like me or my family, and I will always save the children. But that whole thing, thank you, G. The whole thing of killing a cat like that, like, I can't get over that. Like, that's on a whole other level, isn't it? To watch an animal suffer like that. How close is it, do you guys think, right? How close do you think it is to place a cat, a defenseless animal, into a fire and place a human into a fire? Because I don't think there's much difference. Personally, I don't think. You'll always see that some people who don't like people who are murderers would never hurt an animal. It's very sick. It's cruel, very cruel. I think that there's not much between it. And he was arrested for that. He admitted that. Oh, God, I can't even breathe. Okay. So the victim that he is serving time for now, him and his nephew, Brendan Dassey. Let me show you a picture of her because it's her story, really, not his. So this is Teresa Halbach, and you will have to go to YouTube to watch the whole case. I did on her the other day because I always think cases should belong to the victims, not to anyone else. So we know in 1985, Stephen Avery was convicted of rape and attempted murder of Penny Bernstein. It come back that was a wrongful conviction. They got DNA. It was someone else's, and he was then let out. We know he became a bit of a local celebrity. Thank you, Emma. He became a bit of a local celebrity at that time, and at 18 years of false imprisonment, he was let out. When 2 years later, Teresa Halbach died, and we know that she went missing. We know that she went out to the property to photograph a vehicle there, a trailer for his sister. And we know at that time that she went missing on Halloween, 31st of October. And cell phone records do show that she spoke to him that day. I want to talk about some of the things for a moment, thank you, Michelle, that Netflix didn't tell us in the show, because I think that's really important. And I think there's a lot of things missed out. Okay, so we're going to talk about 14 things that weren't included in the Stephen Avery Making a Murderer. I know, G, I've got to do something, to be fair. And everyone I speak to, the whole house is ill. I think Ella's house are all ill as well, apart from Ella. I read on Facebook today. Ellie's been coughing like mad. I was on the phone to Ellie yesterday. She's coughing. I can't stop sneezing. It was a right fucking shit show, but it is what it is. I've still got to work. I've still got to pay my bills on night. So hopefully it'll be over soon. I'm going out all day tomorrow, so I'm hoping that really clears me up. I've got loads of bills to pay. I'm going to take the kids out, so we've got loads of things going on. I've run out of that nasal spray as well, but I was doing the water one a minute ago before I come live. It's February now, Kirsty, and I'm still ill. So, what was not in the show? Okay. So, we know that one of the things that wasn't evidenced in the programme was actually arm and leg restraints were found in Stephen Avery's bedroom. According to the Milwaukee magazine, from May the 1st, 2006, Avery admitted that he had handcuffs and leg irons in his bedroom, and he did buy them because he wanted to try them out sexually. Now, we don't know if there was any DNA found on these because it wasn't included in the documentary, and I cannot find it anywhere. However, we do know that in the confession that Dassey gave, he mentioned these being used. Now we know they were found within the room. That worries me. It worries me that a man would have any kind of leg restraints and yes, I know that some people are freaky in the bedroom, but in lieu of who he is, and what he's been convicted of before, I was thinking in my head, like, if I'd been falsely convicted of a rape, I'd even be scared to have shit like that in my house. I'd be like, nope, not going back again for shit like that. I just get a weird feeling about that. Do you know what I mean? Like, and I know people can have whatever they want in their own bedroom, do whatever they want, but I just thought in the grand scheme of things, I would be worried about that. According to testimony of the Department of Justice investigator of Dassey's trial, that's not the only place that such things were found. He testified leg irons and handcuffs were also found in both Avery's and Dassey's mother's residence. Although on cross-examination, Brendan's prints and DNA weren't on those. It doesn't say whose are though. Also, the Netflix documentary paints a really rosy relationship between Stephen Avery and Jodie until she leaves him. However, that's not true. There were several instances of domestic abuse, and we know at one point Avery was ordered by the court to stay away from her and pay a fine for domestic abuse. So that wasn't true that it was rosy. He did have a history of being violent to women and to threatening women, including the one who was in I think it was the police officer's wife that he pulled over on the side of the road, or sister, that he aimed a gun at her for no reason. Thank you, Kirsty. And that was why he ended up being in the photo fit for the rape that he ended up being convicted for, that he was innocent of, because he'd threatened this woman on the side of the road. He'd run her car off the road and threatened her with a gun. Thank you, everyone, for the hearts. So we know about the key found in his bedroom, and we know that that had his DNA on. So Dassey's mother come forward during the trial and said that Avery and Dassey for days cleaned out that garage with bleach. Now, we talked about there being no blood left in there, and we know that bleach doesn't alone kind of get rid of all the blood, but it makes you wonder. She said he had bleach all over his clothing, they were out there for days. That's not in the documentary, and that worries me. Dassey's mother spoke to police investigator Barbara Jander, and she said her son had stained his pants, so her name's Barbara Jander, that her son had stained his pants several times while cleaning the garage floor in the days around Halloween. So that does worry me, because they've always said no cleanup, right? The animal abuse incident mentioned in the documentary, but not in great detail. According to Associated Press story from November the 20th, 2005, Stephen was convicted in 1981 of burglary. He got 5 years probation, which was revoked. In 1982, as a teenager, he set fire to a cat with gasoline and then threw it into a bonfire. Just disgusting. Thank you, guys. According to another article from March the 9th, 2006, while he was in prison, Avery, on the first conviction for rape, which obviously we know he was innocent, he would regularly draw torture chambers with violent scenes of what he would do to women. Important. And this made other inmates come forward and say, while he was in prison, Avery planned on killing and torturing a young woman. The allegation included 22 pages of court documents, which I have seen, and that talks about that while he was at Green Bay Correctional Institution, Avery talked about and showed them diagrams of a torture chamber he planned to build when he was released. The filing also includes a statement from a woman who's now 41 who says that she was raped by Avery. And he said if she told anyone or screamed, there was going to be trouble. There's also an affidavit from a different girl who says she was also raped by Avery. The victim's mother indicated the victim does not want to speak about the sexual assault between her and Stephen Avery because she is so terrified of what Stephen Avery will do if she ever talks about it, because he promised her he'd come back and kill her and her family. So this is showing a different guy, right? This is a guy who has committed many rapes before. If we do what we are, what we always say in here, we believe victims, right? And if young girls and women are coming forward and saying that they have at some time, the affidavit also states that Avery has admitted to his fiancée at the time, Jodie, that he had sexually assaulted this young girl and he had committed a rape at one point. So he admits that. There is evidence that on the time before Teresa Halbach went to the property, from the time that she died, Stephen Avery had opened the door wearing just a towel and scared her. He cites, so it cites in the court paperwork, that on October the 10th, 21 days before she died, Teresa Halbach visits the property owned by the Avery family for a photo shoot for Auto Trader. Avery allegedly opened the door wearing just a towel. She was creeped out and she went to her employer and said she never wanted to go back to that property. Thank you, Kirsty. According to the Associated Press story from February 14, 2007, the judge would not allow Dawn Plitzker, an auto trader receptionist, to testify about this during the court. She had stated he had come out in a towel. I just said, really? And then she said, I don't want to go back to that property. I felt scared. So this is something, hang on a minute, I just blew my nose again. I'm so poor. Hang on. That's better for a second. So on the day in question when she died, Avery called the auto trader and said he didn't just want a photographer to come out, he wanted Teresa particularly to come out. He said he wanted Teresa, and she talked to her back around 11 that day to say that she had an appointment to go to the Avery property and that Avery was requesting her. And that's different because he's never said that, and they never said that in Netflix, that actually he said he only wanted Teresa. That's like he had a plan in his head, right? That he wanted a certain woman to come out to the property. A woman that before he'd answered the door in a towel, perhaps seeing if maybe he could talk her into a sexual encounter. That is weird to me. So Avery called Halbach's cell phone 3 times that day, but twice he used the 6-7 feature to block his number from coming up on her cell so she wouldn't know it was him. According to a newspaper article in the River Falls Journal from February 28, 2007, the Loring Cellular Company worker Bobby Delwart and Laura Schraddy testified that Avery's cell phone made 3 calls to Halbach's cell and twice used a star 67 feature, which is a bit like R141. These calls came around 2:30. The third call was placed around 2 hours later. It lasted 13 seconds and the phone company worker couldn't tell it was answered or it went to voicemail. So we know that on 2 times. We also know that when he called the auto trader, he didn't give her his own name. He gave his sister's name and told the auto trader that Teresa would be coming out to the property to meet with his sister and not him. And that turned out not to be true. Now, we can't say that's definitely suspicious because it was his sister's vehicle that she would be photographing, but he did actually lie. Now, according to one of the people who testified for the prosecutor, which was not in the documentary either, investigators say that they found steel belts, about 6 tyres, in between all of her remains. So in the 5-gallon buckets where her bones were found, there were steel belts. Now, this is important because he was someone who worked with cars. Now, before, we've always been led to believe the police brought them back to the property, that she was dumped there, she was moved, but she was found with a lot of the other things that he was burning. Making a murderer, it's called. Now, another thing that I don't think, thank you, Angela, one thing that I don't think was made very clear to us, because from what I told you the other day, I have done videos for Hope for Harley and I have spoke about him live as well. I just can't do it halfway through a victim's case at the moment. So in another thing that we were lied to, we were kind of told that his DNA had been put into the car via his blood and it was placed just by the steering wheel column, right? Actually, it was found in 6 places inside of her car. 6 places. It was found on the ignition, on a CD case and on the seats. He also said Avery had a cut on his finger and he stated that the state crime analysis found DNA from Avery's sweat. Now, I personally still believe that the police planted the blood in that vehicle. I still believe that, right? 100% I believe that, right? I just believe that the police wanted to get him in jail so quickly because the money they will have to pay with him. That I don't believe if he ever killed her, she was ever in that car with him. I just don't believe that. But I think it's interesting that. So we talk about what's not in the documentary. There's also we also know that later on they would find in her skull fragments, of which we have this picture here. In her skull fragments, they found that there was a bullet hole. Right. Now, they later managed to forensically test the bullet that they found in his garage with the DNA of Teresa Halbach, and they managed to link that to the gun that was found above Stephen's bed. So there is a forensic link there, and it would mean that the police would have had to have got involved way before this killing even happened, taken a gun from Stephen Avery's bedroom, taken it, shot the woman in the head, brought it back, put it back with no DNA, and then it doesn't make any sense to me. It just doesn't. I struggle with that. I also want to read you this thing between, this is a phone call between the nephew. Thank you guys for the gifts. So this is his nephew here, who is convicted alongside him. He came forward, gave a statement to say that him and Stephen Avery had, that is, his uncle had forced him to have sex with her, that they had buried her body, that they had done all those things together. Now, I do believe he was in some part treated unfairly. He was forced into giving a given statement, so making a confession. I don't know if he should be in prison at all, to be fair. But this, I just want to read this out of interest. This is a transcript between Brendan Dassey and his mother. So his mum said, "Did he make you do this?" He says, "Yes." "Then why didn't you tell him that?" And he says, "Tell him what?" She said that Stephen made you do it. You know he made you do a lot of things, right? And he says, "I told them. Mum, I even told them that Stephen used to touch me." And she goes, "What do you mean touching you?" And Brendan says that he would grab me in the places I wasn't comfortable. Trigger warning, guys. And then his mum says, Brendan, sorry, I'm your mother. He says, "Yeah." And she goes, "Why didn't you tell me?" He goes, "You knew all this." And he says, "I did tell you. You knew he always touched us like that." And she goes, "Yeah, but I thought it was just horseplay." And she goes, and then he says, "No, you know what he used to do to me and Brian." And she goes, "What do you mean?" He goes, like fake pumping us, right? And she goes, "Yeah, that's just horseplay. He's goofing around." And then he goes, "No, remember the one time when he did that to Jessica's sister, who's another child, by the way?" And she goes, "Teresa?" And he goes, "Yeah, do you remember when she come to the sleepover, what he did to her that day?" And she goes, "Don't worry, that was just horsing around." This tells me a real thing, right, of a whole family who are so fucked up, right? When you look into the history of Brendan, Bobby, the mum's new partner, there's so much child abuse, child sexual assault, all of those things. The mum's new, the boyfriend during the time that Teresa died, which is now her husband, by the way, this guy, he has several child sexual assaults in his background, right? And he is possibly linked to this case. I think him and Bobby are possibly involved in this. I think possibly this is so much bigger than just Stephen Avery. I think he's involved. And I think they all knew. They all knew that Teresa was coming up to the property that day. When you look at, so there's new testimony that's been brought out by the lawyer that says Bobby, so this guy, was seen pushing the vehicle. Okay, so it says here, a new witness has come forward with testimony that could upend the famous making a murderer case. So Avery and his nephew, Brendan Dassey, were convicted in 2007 of murdering Teresa Halbach 2 years earlier. Halbach, a photographer who worked for the auto trader, had visited Avery's home in Manitowoc County on October the 31st. She disappeared after that scheduled appointment. Her Toyota RAV4 was subsequently found in the salvage yard. Found in it, Avery owned. And it goes on. In the latest development, Avery's attorney, Catherine Selner, filed a motion Monday asking for the case to be sent back to the circuit court because Bobby Dassey, who is Avery's nephew and Brendan's brother, was seen in the early hour morning of November the 5th in the dark blue RAV and then later pushing the same vehicle along the side of the road. The delivery driver, Thomas Sawinski, stated in a sworn affidavit attached to the new county filing that it was drove by a shirtless Bobby and an older man, described as being in his 50s and 60s. And I think it may have been this guy, and just from which he looks about 50s anyway, doesn't he? And he was on his way to deliver newspapers at that time. When he passed the RAV a second time, Swansky saw Bobby trying to step in front of the car to block him from leaving the property, and he had to swerve into a ditch to get past him. So I honestly think they were trying to, at that time, get rid of the vehicle, and they were trying to stop him leaving because he was a witness. They would have killed him. He said, I felt afraid as I approached the two individuals because Bobby Dassey attempted to step in front of my car to block my exit. I was within 5 feet of Bobby Dassey when my headlights were on the whole time. And Bobby Dassey looked me in the eye, and I could tell with the look in the eye he was not happy to see me there. So I think they all may well be involved. And I can't rule any of them out. I cannot rule any of them out. So Bobby told jurors on the stand that he had seen Halbach drive up to the property around 2:30 and he never saw her leave. And when he left to go hunting, she was still there. But his alibi is this man, which is his mum's husband now, but was his mum's boyfriend at the time, was his kind of stepdad. Where was my thing that I wanted? So in January, let's have a look. So this is Scott Todak, and we've got Brendan's mother's boyfriend. The theory holds that the two burned the body to dispose of any DNA evidence, and they also had access, right? They lived on that property. They had access to the burn pile. They had access to Teresa's car. They had access to be there the whole time. I just feel like if I was invested or involved in this crime now, I would definitely want a retrial. I would want a retrial to happen. I believe Stephen Avery and Brendan should both have a retrial. I'm just not convinced he's innocent, I'm going to be honest. When I watched the first documentary, I thought, oh my God, it's, you know, that's why I never like to watch one thing. I like to do my own research, because when I watched Netflix last night, I thought, this is, they're just giving us tidbits of information that make it look like, oh, because there's 36 million, this is why they want to set him up. But when I look into it, and when I look, the police department would never have had to pay the money. The money that came from that 36 million would have come from insurance. It would have come from an insurance company. It would never have come from the police department, the sheriff. So why would they be that bothered? I don't get it. I do think the Manitowoc, can't even speak, county didn't like Stephen Avery, and I do think they've set him up. I do think, 100% Neve, I do think they took the blood from the sample and they placed it around the car. I absolutely do believe that. But I don't think they've completely looked into the case. I don't think they've ruled everyone out. And I think this man's background is so murky that I possibly would have thought he was guilty of it as well. Honestly. I can't rule him out. I can't rule him out. I wonder if there was such a rush to judgment that a full investigation hasn't been done. But you have... Is there enough so far to convict him? Absolutely, if they can prove that those bits of evidence weren't planted. However, like I said to you before, and I'll do it both sides, the vial of blood that was taken from the police department has been messed with. It's been tampered with. It's contaminated now. The seal has been cut and then replaced, and there is a pinprick in the lid where they've taken blood from it. And I do believe that, and I think it's really weird when they were accused in the media of planting evidence, the police, they were like, wow, where would we have got a vial of his blood from to do this? And then a couple of weeks later, the vial of blood is found at the station. I don't know, Elaine. This is what I just don't think. I don't think we're getting the truth. Personally, when I know somebody has previously harmed animals, raped people, molested people, I kind of lose the drive to prove him innocent. I'm going to be honest. Do I think he committed this murder? Not alone, no. He was a very, very... he's not a smart guy. I still struggle to believe that she died in that bedroom or in the garage, because there would have been blood everywhere. She had her throat slit. She had a wound in the back of her head, and she would have bled so much. She was apparently stabbed so many times, and her throat was cut. That alone would have caused so many blood everywhere. It would have been absolutely impossible to get rid of that blood. What I do believe needs to happen is a new trial based on all the evidence, and they need to take Manitowoc County completely out of it. They cannot investigate this case anymore. They cannot be involved. The whole. We know from what they say happened, right? Blue Star or the other spray. What was I calling it the other day? They 100% would have found the blood. They 100% would have found. I just don't believe that Stephen Avery. Like, look how the car was hidden. Like, honestly, like. If he had, I still go back to no, thank you. I still go back to the original thing. He had a crusher on his property. If he wanted to crush the car, he would have just got rid of it. It made no sense to keep it there. And it makes you wonder with Bobby, like, seeing driving it or pushing it along that road. Like, was it him that took it back? Was it his own family that set Steve? There's definitely more involved here. I just don't know if Stephen is completely innocent, because there's not enough evidence for me to say that he is innocent. And I can only give you what I find. I can't say. So we know that Stephen had made inappropriate comments to the victim. We know that he had a violent history, and a violent history towards women. We know he threatened women before. We know several children from his family have said he molested them. We know that other women have come forward to say he'd raped them in the past. That, to me, is a very murky history, and animal abuse. So no, I can't rule him out. Regardless of the police in this, that have probably ruined the investigation of the police because they didn't have to do what they did, and now they fucked the whole thing up. I don't think he's completely innocent. We know a bullet with the victim's DNA on the ballistically linked to the gun hanging above his bed. We know all of those things happened. Do I think the car key was planted in his room? Yes. Do I think they planted his blood? Yes. We know that multiple witnesses were pressured to change their statements. What I would love to see done is a new investigation. A new investigation. I would love to see that. I would love to see a new investigation and a new trial. I need to go watch part 2, which is Making the Murderer, the part 2 of it. We do know Stephen had a cut, so the blood, somehow could have come from him. We know that. But I just do think, hello, Calvin, I do think they were probably planted. I do just wish that people would stop seeing this as the case of Stephen Avery and start seeing it as Teresa's case. Because this is how she was returned to her family. And I feel like she's got lost in her own case. And like I said the other day, nothing makes me sadder than the fact that she doesn't even seem to feature in her own case anymore. So one of the things I will talk about that I do think is quite interesting, and it may point to his innocence, right, is his lawyer, Swelner, who actually is a really good lawyer, and she's someone I completely believe in, she's a hero of mine. She says that they can now prove that the corpse lied and that Teresa's phone pinged off a cell tower 12.1 miles away from the Avery property later that day. So that means she would have had to have left the property already, right? And she would have gone to a new area, which again would exonerate him, right? Because he never left the property. And that may give you pause to think maybe Bobby followed her, or the stepdad seeing this woman followed her to a new area, or someone from her own life that she was going to meet. So that's definitely interesting to look into. I would definitely want to look into that more. And when I was looking at the, I got up earlier, all of her phone data, and Kirsty, I've never seen that before. Thank you so much. That's beautiful. Thank you, Kirsty. I've not seen, what's it called, Lucky Pony? I've not seen that before. It must be new. Thank you. When I was looking at earlier her cell phone data, a lot of the stuff they were saying in the courts wasn't matching up with what I could see on the actual reports. Do I still have it here? Look, on the actual, when you listen to the court paperwork, because I was listening to the court and watching it on YouTube earlier, and then I have like the cell phone data here, which all of the maps triangulate, all the calls she made, the list of all the calls, and they're not quite being honest about everything, because they should have been able to tell. Like, as well as saying it now, but that was always on there, that her phone pinged way away from Avery's property towards another job way after she'd been at his property. So there is that. And there is the fact Bobby was seen pushing the car. I just can't rule out the whole of the Avery family as well. Thank you, Ruth. Thank you, Maddie. Because the whole family have a really bad, scummy kind of background. And a lot of kind of... It's called Making a Murderer. I keep saying it. Making a Murderer. Yeah, I'm going to look more into it. And I'm going to watch number 2 before I do more on the case. Because I have deep dived this so many times today. And do you know what? As I was coming live, I'm like changing my mind 100 times over.